Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of Joshua Basin Water District from Wednesday, March 7th, 2018. Please rise and join Kathleen in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pray begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, determination of a quorum.
Madam President, all 5 directors are here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Madam Chairman, I'm sorry. I was ahead of the time.
Okay. So I have, it's been moved. Do I have a second?
second.
We all second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposition. It's unanimous. We will move to public comment. This is a time set aside for public comment on any district-related matter not appearing on the agenda. Government code prohibits the board from taking action on these items, but they may be referred for future consideration. Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Marquez? Oh, go ahead.
John Stang. When I left the meeting the last time, my daughter brought up a good idea, and she suggested to help out the low income that you raise the rates on the, I'm not sure about the abbreviations, the ARBNBs. People that use those really don't care about our problem with the water. And there's others making a profit doing so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, I will close public comment. We'll move on to item number 6, the consent calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be enacted in a single motion without discussion. Any board member or member of the public may request an item be removed from the consent calendar and acted on separately. The 2 items are the draft minutes of February 21st, 2018, and the job description for the Assistant General Manager of Operations. Mr. Marquez.
Al Marquez, Consent Fair Community. This is on the consent calendar approval of the draft minutes for February 21st. I'd like to make a comment on the correction on the public comments during the public hearing on the water rates and charges. Myself, Al Marquez, questioned why he needed a rate increase because in 2012, standby revenue was $165,000. Well, that is incorrect on that $165,000. I made a point that the standby revenues for that year was $1,165,000, not $165,000. And also it stated that I questioned why there was a rate increase, why it was needed. And my comment at that time was I wasn't against a rate increase. I was stating that as the rate increase that I was in favor of was a single digit of either 8 or 9%, not a or a double-digit percentage increase. So I would imagine, I would request that the whoever does the minutes transcription really be exact on their transcripts on the minutes. And I noticed that whenever there's a comment that is in favor of the water district, they go into detail, but when it's not in favor of the board, it's not very much detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marquez. Anyone else?
Can I make a comment on his? Okay.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing that, and we will make that change, Mr. Marquez, that it was 1,000,006, whatever it was. All right, we'll move on to item number 7, Chromium 6 Remediation Project, Chromium 3 Reoxidation Study. Mr. Sauer.
Okay, so we've talked about stannous chloride treatment in the past. We briefed the board, I believe at the last meeting, maybe the meeting before, that we were working with the Division of Finance on getting this particular bench study funded through the grant. They weren't going to fund it through the grant. So we have a choice after meeting with them on several different things. And the recommendation from the general manager is that the board authorize the general manager either to take the funding for the Chromium 6 bench study from reserves, or we utilize the zero-interest loan available from the state and pay it back over 5 years. And because Mark Ban has been here for almost 3 weeks, and Randy Little has been babysitting the Chromium 6 ever since its inception and the writing of the grant and overseeing it during his interim time, Mark and I invited Randy back to do the presentation.
Welcome back, Randy.
Thank you. Just a correction, Randy Mays.
Yeah.
That's my name. Different title, same last name. All right. On May 31st, 2017, the Superior Court of Sacramento County overruled the maximum contaminant level established in July 2014 for Chromium 6. The Division of Drinking Water is actively working towards establishing a new Chromium 6 MCL. The total Chromium MCL remains in effect at 50 parts per billion. On October 18, 2017, the Division of Drinking Water determined that Joshua Basin Water District no longer needed to comply with the Chromium 6 compliance plan. The district owns and operates 5 active wells, considering well 14's offline right now. So 4 that produce potable water that exceeds the previously established 10 parts per billion. As a result, the district voluntarily reached out to the Division of Drinking Water with a request to perform a reduced coagulation, non-filtration stannous chloride bench scale pilot study. Since previous district studies have demonstrated that stannous chloride is effective in converting Chromium 6 to Chromium 3, research still remains as to whether Chromium 3 will reoxidize when applied to the potable water system. To date, the district has received approximately $250,000 in reimbursable grant funds for evaluating Chromium 6 planning through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Prop 1 funding pool. And just to elaborate that on a little bit, the $250,000 was associated with doing some hydrogeological efforts to understand whether any blanking of the column could occur, so that we could mitigate that way. That would have extended the life an additional 5 years for additional time. Weak base ion exchange, which proved to be very expensive. Basically, our costs range from $1.4 million to $2.6 million between RCF, strong base, and weak base ion exchange. So strong base, once again, really, we had total dissolved solid waste with limited disposal options, reduced coagulation filtration. We looked at spun filters, pleated filter cartridges, and unsightly sludge drying beds that would occur from that. So once again, it's not only a killer on the capital cost, but the operation and maintenance costs thereafter. So kind of this proposal mirrors that of Coachella Valley Water District. They've actually done a full-scale demonstration model that has shown remarkable efforts towards mitigation. So not only reduce coagulation filtration, they're doing non-filtration feature. That filtering part is very expensive. And so not only does stannous chloride remove Chromium 6 and is effective in doing so, but it's also the added benefit of protecting your pipes as well. And so we want to further that research under Joshua Basin Water District's water quality conditions. You may be wondering, well, if they've done it, why can't we just borrow their study? Well, stannous chloride is very dependent upon basin-wide water quality conditions. And so that's kind of where that $250,000 has been spent, kind of where we're going with this next study. And so on February 21st, 2018, the district discussed with the Division of Drinking Water and the Division of Financial Assistance the Chromium-3 reoxidation study. This bench scale pilot study would provide clarity on the parameters for which the Chromium-3 residual would reoxidize in the presence of chlorine. This bench scale pilot study consists of creating conditions representing expected stannous chloride doses, sodium hypochlorite doses, resident times and temperatures in the district's potable water system. Samples would react under these laboratory conditions for up to 40 days, and analysis would occur thereafter. So I believe Kurt kind of covered what our last discussion with the division was. And so the board has an option. They can draw money from reserves, which would approximately be, it would be $94,000 for the study. They have the other option of moving forward with taking the loan component, which we haven't done to date, which would be roughly $19,000 per year over 5 years. And then, the last option, which isn't listed here, is the matter could be tabled altogether. I'm not, it's up to the board's discretion on how you'd like to proceed with that. But this is a prevailing issue, and we will have an MCL in the next 24 months or so. And so, or thereafter, and so our water quality conditions will remain the same. And so if we can get ahead of the game, it'll be to our benefit. If you have any questions, I'd love to.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for Randy?
We've come this far, and the fact that back in October, the Division of Drinking Water determined that we didn't need to comply at the time with a Chrome 6 compliance plan because we had gotten so far ahead of the game. And it will be something. We don't know. I mean, we're so close to finishing this study. It's almost like tying a bow on it. I don't know. What does everyone else say?
Question. The implementation time period within 24 months do they give us an extension on them to be compliant?
So once the MCL is in place, then it would go through the entire cycle again. We would go through the violation period depending on where they set the MCL. If it's higher, then maybe some of our wells would be affected, maybe others would not be at that time. I believe that they'll want to set the MCL as close as possible to the 10 parts per billion. I think that's pretty logical through this process. So the cheaper treatment options that are available, they're going to be looking at that over the next 24 months. And I think that it gets us on the ground running if we continue to do this study, put a bow on it, as Director Unger said, and gets us just one step further.
Thank you. Bob?
So basically, if we deferred though, where are we with the timeline? I thought there was some litigation for small special districts and that, so where are we with that?
Yeah, so it's in the court, the Division of Drinking Water. They have to set a new MCL. California EPA has a defined public health goal. That has not changed. The litigation was not based on the merits of the science. It was based off the financial piece for small water systems. And so as a result, they're looking at that. Now, the Division of Drinking Water has an interest in the wells that we have currently been studying, but more specifically for stannous chloride with well 16. We'd also be doing well 17 as well. And that serves roughly 200 to 300 customers, and that's the type of group that they're looking for future studies.
So you don't see any exemptions coming?
Just say no.
Just say no.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, Director Hunt.
First, Randy, you said that this treatment could also protect our pipes. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, actually, stannous chloride back in the 90s was effective for actually coating old steel lines and actually increasing the longevity of it. And so it was NSF 61 approved at that time. And so now they're trying to use that as an effective, so we kind of get a bang for a buck. You know, we're not only treating chromium 6, but we're also potentially extending the life of our potable water system.
Okay, and then, thank you. And then you made a comment that I picked up on, and I think I've had this discussion with General Manager Sauer, and that's that this, putting on hold and reevaluating what the standard will be for, is it parts per billion?
Correct.
Is based more on the economic effect and not on the science. So the science is saying that it's unhealthy and that it's a good idea to get it down. So I think it's something that we want to endeavor to do anyway. So I think that's an argument for continuing. And then lastly, I just want to clarify if the general manager is asking for us to make an either-or decision or wants to have the discretion on whether or not to just pay for it or borrow the money.
Sure, I'd love to have the discretion to just, but what we've done so far is we've used the grant money. And I thought that it was important to bring it to the board because if we go that route, which is the route I think we should go, we would pay up front to get it done. We'd get the loan from them, and then we have to pay the loan back. But from the time we finish the bench study, we have 5 years. So instead of a $94,000 upfront cost, they'll have a $19,000 cost for the next 5 years. And it's interest-free.
Right. And given that the value of money goes down with inflation, it seems like we could actually kind of make money on the deal by doing the $19,000 over 5 years. So,
We're going to make 3% a year, I guess.
all right, thank you. Thank you both.
Dr. Flum?
So I understand that this $250,000 that we've spent so far, that was for a very broad menu or range of related projects and such. It isn't specifically for this reduced coagulation, non-filtration status chloride bench scale pilot.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And how far, specifically on that, we've started that, right? We're doing that? We've been doing that?
So, yes, we've done that.
Meaning this study or are we going to begin doing this now?
So far, we've done a reduced coagulation filtration study that has given us a cost of approximately $1.4 million per year. And by taking out the filtration component, which is fairly expensive for O&M costs, that's what we'd like to further research. It not only allows us to understand how Stannis would be effective for mitigation, but also reduce costs as well.
So what I'm kind of wondering is, do we have some sort of facility or people or a contract with somebody already? And have we partially committed to this so that if we don't fund this, which we are, it's just a matter of how we're going to do it. But if we don't fund this, we're going to have to retool or restart all over again, or so. In other words, is it more practical just to go through with this because we've got the ball rolling already?
Randy,
What a,
let me just interject, because he's kind of shy, Randy.
I am too, so-
So Randy Mays and Greg Guillen of Dudek Engineering have spent many hours putting together the protocol, coordinating with Coachella Valley's folks, getting their protocol, making it very similar, but addressing our water quality. And we're ready to go. And that work would be done by Randy and Greg Guillen in the field. He'd be in the field for about 5 days, 8 days?
9 days.
9 days. And then it's a matter of holding this water at the lab for 40 days, so up to 40 days. So I wanted to respond to that because Randy's already put a lot of time into this, as has Greg Guillen. And we're getting all the invoices from Dudek and trying to charge all that work up to this point to the grant before they close out the grant and the loan. So, I don't know if you want to add anything else, but it would be Randy and Greg in the field.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to go further with that. With this discussion, as of March 31st, all work was to be completed on this CHROMIUM-6 remediation efforts. Talking with the division, they're willing to amend the existing agreement for this $94,000 study over a period of 6 months, I think.
Six to eight, well, if we tell them we'll be done in 6 months, then that's what they're going to hold us to.
Sure, so that's where it would be extended for that period.
A couple of things. One of the things I've noticed, partly it being at the farmer's market, is that there are a lot of people, there is a community of people out there that would like all of the CHROMIUM-6 out of the water, no matter how much it is.
Right.
And some say that because they know that it is in there at whatever level, they don't drink the water. And along with this pipe thing, this stannous chloride being in the pipes and a preservative for the pipe or whatever, if anybody's wondering about potentially drinking stannous chloride that's in the pipes or some such thing, I noticed today on my bottle of vitamin pills that there's stannous chloride in my vitamin pills. So I don't.
For your pipes.
I already thought about that, but I didn't. Thank you. We'll leave you on top.
Okay, stannous chloride is tin, is it not?
That's correct.
And that's what they were saying, that it coats so that it does protect the pipes. And I don't know if you said this, if you did, I apologize, I must have tuned that out for a second. But the issue is that while the stannous chloride takes the CHROMIUM-6 out, when you chlorinate the water, when you put the water back in and it's chlorinated, it'll convert from chromium-3 back to chromium-6. And what they need to find out is how much.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Basically. And so that's the issue, and that's what we're doing, so, and we've got 2 different options for doing it, so. Your recommendation is that we use the loan and pay it back?
That's my recommendation, yes.
Okay. Any other questions of the board?
Ask him, Bob, ask him. Oh. Bob wants to ask if this is, if this is gonna be, the 94,000 will be it, or are you gonna come back to us for more money?
So the research thus far would be at the bench scale level. I think it's prudent to make sure we have an understanding of where it would reoxidize at this point, the chief question are our water quality conditions. It makes sense to understand there afterwards whether we want to, we could do 2 routes. Either we could do a full-blown demonstration like Coachella Valley Water District, or we could wait till the MCL has finalized. As it relates to our grant, this has brought us to this juncture. In discussions with the Division of Drinking Water, they've talked about an organized shutdown potential, but with talking with the Division of Drinking Water, they're very invested in this issue, and they're very much in support of Joshua Basin continuing the work. So we have come to a bench scale level, and so that is what's before you. Full scale model, which is something that Coachella Valley Water District has occurred, and that would happen at a later time, a different proposition, where either 200 to 300 homes in Zone A or B would be affected, or both, for a period of time for testing. So if that answers your question.
Answer your question, Bob?
TBD, yeah.
Any other questions from anyone? Yes, Mr. Marquez?
My understanding is that the
Al,
federal...
please go up there so that he can get it on tape. I know I'm hard-nosed about it, but we'd like to have you with for posterity, sir.
Al Marquez, my understanding is the federal mandate right now is the measurement is 100 milligrams per billion or whatever it is. The state was at 50 milligrams. Now the state wants to do 10 milligrams per billion. Is that correct?
No, the federal's at 100 parts per billion.
Yeah.
The state, and this is for total chromium, is 100 parts per billion. They've had this in effect, I think we're coming on 2 decades now. The state at that same time established a 50 parts per billion. However, they've been looking at chromium-6, which is a composite. There's chromium-3 and chromium-6, which together make total chromium. And so now the state of California is looking specifically at chromium-6 and creating an independent MCL for that.
Okay, so it's independent from what the federal numbers are.
The federal does not have a standard for chromium-6.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the public before we ask if anyone wants to make a motion?
I would move that we approve the expenditure of funds with a 5-year 0% loan. Is that the way the motion should read?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Start with Director Flowing.
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye, so it is passed.
Thank you,
Thank
Randy.
you very
Thank
much,
you.
Randy. Great job.
Thank you. And by the way, I want to welcome Mark Van. I've only known him for the last 3 weeks, but he's an incredible guy, and I'm looking forward to further work with him.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Item number 8, general, what did you say?
Nothing.
You're probably got on tape. District General Counsel report.
No
Mr. Polito.
report, but I have some bad news. I think it's bad news. Today I spoke with the person at the State Water Resources Control Board that's monitoring and working on the low-income rate assistance program that was commissioned by the legislature 2 years ago, and I talk about it all the time. And I was really waiting, going to my mailbox every day in January and February, seeing if the report came out yet and how they're going to finance such a low rate assistance program for those economically disadvantaged. And I'm sad to report that, she says, yeah, we've got the report. Mary says, but we put it on hold, and it's not subject to public disclosure yet. So
my
on and on, this thing is like, go moving at a snail's pace. And it's sad because
Yeah.
that was commissioned 2 years ago, and it's still not, it's done, but the State Water Board isn't ready to vet it publicly.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
I have a question for
Disappointing,
you.
interesting.
Dr. Hunt has a question for you.
So, just to clarify, the legislation was passed, and I assume then this is a mandate
Right,
to...
AB 401 was passed 2 years ago.
Right, and when it was passed, did it mandate that this program be developed and implemented, and did it provide an appropriation, or is that a separate piece of legislation?
No, that's what they were mandated to come up with a fund that circumvents 218, that circumvents gift of public funds, develop an independent fund for the purpose it was intended.
Right,
And I always suspected it might be a tax. We don't know because the report hasn't been vetted publicly.
right, but don't they have some kind of timeline?
Yeah,
in that?
the legislature itself provided, they were supposed to submit a report to the legislature
Uh-huh.
in February, and it was to be heard at the legislature level in March. That's not going to happen, I was told today.
But if the legislation called for that, if that's the law, how can they not do
They
it?
must have got some kind of, they aren't able to produce it.
Okay,
And I don't know how they get around that legislative mandate, other than the fact that the legislature, whoever had it, or Dodd himself, that the senator who sponsored the bill, must have been provided a good reason why they have to vet it. They have to keep it vetted internally further. Must be a complicated report. I don't know, but she didn't offer a reason. I should have asked. I was
That's
in the
okay.
car when I was talking to her.
Thank you. Thanks for the update.
Okay.
I have a question. Gil, is the water tax still
Yeah,
floating?
yeah, that's what made me think, they may be waiting for that to make its way through the legislature. And they're probably going to orchestrate that bill, see how that flies with the legislature, and and then maybe have the report modified, or at least work in tandem with that bill. and I'm glad you brought that up. Aqua is gathering funds to resist that water tax bill. They've got a target of $300,000, and already, in just a week or two, have already got pledges of $110,000. And big issue there is going to be, well, how can we use this money? I don't know if you know this or not, Rebecca, or board, but you can use public funds to lobby the legislature directly. That's permissible, but you can't go out to your constituents or your newsletters and things like that to push your constituents to vote one way or another. That's absolutely prohibited. So what ACWA's going to do, Rebecca, is they're going to get these pledges. Some are going to be from private sources, some from public sources like ourselves. Already some of my clients have been asked for $10,000. And I think I'm pretty sure most of them are going to pledge that amount. They're going to allocate the funds separately. The ones that come from public agencies are just going to use that to lobby the legislature directly. The money that comes from public sources are going to use to educate the public what this bill's all about in a balanced way. And of course, if you're one of the agencies that does pledge 10,000 or whatever they think you should pony up, that makes you a lobbyist. It makes you a member of a coalition that acts like a lobbyist. My clients are going to have to file reports with the Secretary of State, just like lobbyists do. I'm prepared to advise them accordingly. And I don't know if they'll be too pleased about that.
What a development.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Who brought it up? Was it Rob? Did you bring it up about working in tandem with AB 401? Who was it just a moment ago that brought that up? Nobody did? Whatever. I think the stall at the State Water Board is just that. They
For
see
the
this.
tax, yeah.
They see this tax bill. It may harmonize with what this report is that we haven't seen, or it may run contrary. I don't know. But I'll bet you anything they're trying to harmonize the two. That's what I think. That's just
It's a
conjecture.
good way to get it moving.
Just want the needle to move, Robert. We've been waiting way too long. This community could really use
Yeah.
that kind of rate assistance.
Yes, it could.
Well, Gil, you were here for with the whole public hearing, and people, the suggestion came up for the little box on our bill to donate people who want to round it off or.
Yeah, but how much money
add
is
to it.
that? I like the idea, but how much money?
Yeah.
And for the administrative effort?
Right.
I'm really doubtful it'd be, there's got to be better ways to do it.
And this is why a lot of the Aqua members, from the last conference, they said, we don't want to be in the position to have to be the qualifying agency. We
Right.
want it to come, from someone who already does that.
Right.
So you're seeing how it played
Yeah,
with them
and
as
we-
well.
We definitely don't need to be in that business. Got enough going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when our local agencies used to be like a phantom form of government? Nobody ever knew about us. What do they do? Why do they have all these meetings? Look how it's changed over the years. You're out front now. You're just out front, just like cities and counties are. And the laws are reaching way down here. You do things that you never had to do before. You know that.
Thanks, Gil.
Thanks. Interesting.
We'll move to item number 9, the general manager's report.
Okay, some fun things. The CEC Solar Grant Project. On February 7th, I advised the board that the CEC's scope of work had been completed and they were going to find a contractor or consultant to come out and work on the feasibility study. That consultant came out today. So, 3 weeks? And Mark and Keith and Randy Little, not to be confused with Randy Mays, and I met with the consultant. He did the initial scoping of the facilities for energy efficiency here and at the shop, and is gathering data. So we still need to provide some additional information on our well and booster pumps. We need to provide some maps that he requested, which will be created by Keith, our GIS person, development coordinator, IT, GIS, man of all trades. And we are expecting to hear from the consultant in 2 to 3 weeks with an initial cost-benefit analysis. And then we'll be meeting with our technical advisory committee and moving that project along. And I don't know whether to be optimistic or sad, but cost of photovoltaic panels has gone up some 30% since a tariff was added 6 months ago. Price of steel is probably going up if a tariff was recently added. So we'll see if it pencils out. But it might be an 18-year payoff on a 25-year project versus a 12-year payoff on a 25-year project. And also on February 1st, Susan, Gary, and I traveled to the Eastern Municipal Water District to view their facilities and gather information on how they started their photovoltaic grants and loans program. I'm sure that Gary will want to add some more stuff. I'm surprised that he didn't already bring in some pictures that he wanted to share. Eastern Municipal is
Whoa,
huge.
wow, yeah,
Yeah.
They,
very impressive.
their campus, well, their campus dwarfs Joshua Tree.
Yeah,
But,
right.
I mean, it took us a while, it took us an hour to walk around the campus. You know, and they have 6 full-time human resource officers for 800 employees.
600.
600 employees. So that's a far cry from some company that allegedly had 3,000 employees and had 1 HR position, but that's the way water districts do business now. So more on that later. Ordering vehicles on February 8th, the board approved the purchase of the 2 vehicles. They've been received and they're in service. Meter replacement, because of the information passed on by Mr. Ed. I talked with Ray Collish, we've talked with Inland Waterworks Representative Von Miller. Keith has supplied him with information through GIS to help with their promulgation study. And we have a meeting with him tomorrow. I'm going to give you an initial cost estimate. Initial costs are potentially in the vicinity of 1.4 million. However, that does not include the cost of the Water Smart software, which makes the AMI data available to customers, nor does it include the installation costs. We're also going to be asking him, have asked him for AMR, which is drive-by meter reading, and we haven't received that yet. And when we talked to him last time, he mentioned that their company, or the company, was looking at the possibility of owning, installing, and operating the entire meter system, and we want to get the costs on that, so that we would pay them to do that versus us doing it, and just get the billing information. But then that gets into, do we have the proper software to read their software? So we're still in the investigation phase. And Ray Collish is going to be attending that meeting tomorrow as well. He is still in the investigation phase with 20 meters and 1 collection tower. And as Ray said, we've done everything that we can to try and make it fail. We have flooded the meters boxes, we've buried them in dirt. Their furthest meter is only a half mile away from the collector, so there's how far out can they actually go, a bunch of experimentation. But Ray is interested in hearing what we hear from the consultant, and we're even talking about potential ways to cut costs further. And interesting, after that meeting tomorrow, Ray and I will be discussing Joshua Basin Water Districts as possibly assisting 29 Palms with their GIS. Of course, you've heard recently that 29 Palms doesn't have a GIS position, and therefore JBWD shouldn't have one either. Turns out that the GIS data that they're collecting is being sent to a consultant for processing rather than in-house, and that consultant is charging a far higher rate than what we may be able to provide. And Ray is suggesting that they would reimburse us for some of Keith's time. And Keith will just work more hours in the day. So inquiries into staffing certifications. At the last board meeting, Mark Band's certification was questioned. And since then, a public records request for Randy May's certification was requested. And so while the people making the inquiries have not chosen to discuss their concerns with the general manager, I'm assuming they're making the assumption that we are running the district in an unprofessional or illegal manner because of the lack of a D3. So let me review how the district has maintained compliance with the state system operator requirements. In 2008, when Marina left, Jim Corbin and Randy Little, who both have D3s, became the system operators. When Seth arrived, he became the system operator, and when he left, while Randy was interim DWRO, Jim and Randy Little again stepped up as system operators and continue to do so at this time. We also have Bill Klein, who has a D3, and Kelly Stewart, who has a D4. Randy Mays currently has his D2. He has already passed his D3 test, and we put him in an individual development program to attain hours needed for his D3. Mark Ban, just fine gentleman here, had a D4 certification up to about 8 months ago, and he had that certification for 10 years. Because his focus in the past 3 years has been on running the sewer project for High Desert, and because the training that he did attend was not documented, his certification D4 expired about, as I mentioned, 8 months ago. He's currently scheduled to take his D2 test on March 17th and his D3 certification in September, so by October we expect that he'll have his D3. I informed the Division of Drinking Water 2 weeks ago that Mark Ban had chosen to join our team here at Joshua Basin Water District. Their lead sanitary engineer, Sean McCarthy, was extremely pleased to learn that Mark had joined this district. Because of his 15 years of operations chief experience, Mark has a very strong working relationship with the Division of Drinking Water, as well as Jose Angel of the Colorado Regional Water Quality Control Board. So, we're running the system properly, state knows we're in compliance, and we have two very dedicated, well, we have 21 very dedicated employees, so we're in good shape. And then two more fun things, which one are we going to start with, Keith?
Let's go with the GIS.
The beta map? Or
Yes.
Okay. So I mentioned to you last year that Keith has developed a beta map that allows interested parties, primarily real estate agents, to go online and find out whether or not the water lines are proximal to their parcels. So I asked Keith, so is it getting used? And he said, duh, yes. So he's going to talk to you about that.
Good evening. I developed this mainly for real estate agents at the time to help them out, to get them a little bit better knowledge about what's going on in the district, where water lines are, and if parcels had potential to be sold. Typically, water makes them a little easier to be sold. So I created it back in 2015, kind of late 2015, and so far I've kind of broadened that out and opened it up to the public and allowed them to use it just like the real estate and developers did. So far, it's had about 1,235 hits. When the app comes up, it basically gives them a agreement that they have to agree to. It basically says, don't use this to buy property, don't use this for anything other than just an idea, a concept that water might be available. And I actually had Gil help me with that, to make sure the wording was correct. When the app opens up, it comes up to the district, it shows the boundaries, it shows some of the main areas in the district, the Copper Mountain Mesa Assessment District, the H zone, and the wastewater treatment area, or assessment area. They can go in and type in a parcel number. I typed in the district's parcel number, and it zooms into where that parcel is. It also gives some stats about the parcel, the size. I demasculated some of the data. It actually had owners' names, addresses, stuff like that, which I removed from there because I didn't want that out for the general public. If you zoom out a little bit, it gives you a better idea of where you are within the district. There's also another little button here on the side that'll give them the idea that if they click on that, it'll tell them where they are, like in the wastewater treatment area, stuff like that, so it outlines where they are at. It also has the ability to turn on and off layers, so they can turn off water lines, they can turn off parcels, they can turn off pressure zones, which this one doesn't have currently, but any of the other information that's in the background can be turned off. So I just wanted to do a quick recap of how many hits we've had. Over the past year, we've had about 920, so that averages to about 2.3 hits a day. And you can kind of see the trend as it weans and wanes, or weans and waxes. And kind of over the last little bit of time, we're starting to see a lot more of those hits start to happen. So over the last 6 months, you can see the increase starting to come in. Over the last 60 days,
Wow. Wow.
and over the last 30.
So upwards around 12, high was 12 a day?
The highest is about 5.5 to 6 a day. But the highest number that came in
Okay.
was about 20-something a day.
They're calling me.
So, yeah, that's a very good point.
That's the,
These are 340 phone calls, or maybe 170 phone calls, and each person would ask about 2 parcels. So you can go online at your own time and find out that information, and it's 170, 340 phone calls in the last, whatever that was, 3 months, that Keith didn't have to field and spend time researching and taking away from other work. And so just go back a couple of slides to a GIS. Yeah, that's good enough. So, it's nice that we have a GIS person to help out the community. Anything else on that one, Keith?
no, that's the GIS one.
Keith, how do people find out about it?
It's actually directly on our website. On the recording that I have when they call, it explains all, how to get onto the website, what it can do, and how to actually enter their parcel number. So if you go to the website, right under development info, we have our development packet, and we have all our information, and right here, which we're probably going to be changing the name, because now it's not a beta anymore, it's kind of been a full test. Everything's been done. But they click on that, and it'll bring up the actual application. So they can just go in, type in their parcel number, go right to that parcel.
That's great.
Any other questions from the board? Does it have to be a parcel number? Could they put it?
They can type in an address also.
Will an address work?
Correct.
Okay. Very good. Excellent job. Boy, that's certainly, I'm sure the realtors love it.
As a matter of fact, the realtors are the ones that actually test tried it to make sure it was working, that there was no issues. And then after about 3 or 4 months of that, they really liked it, so I provided it out to the general public.
Good.
Wow.
Very
Is this
good.
something other districts have?
As a matter of fact, I get quite a few calls that they wished other districts did have this.
Awful word, awful.
Hey, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, I'd love to win it
Very good
twice.
idea.
Go for it.
Okay, we will with the assistance of our public affairs officer.
See, you just got
Now-
yourself more work, Kevin.
And now we're going to talk about YouTube.
Oh, joy.
So as most people know, we do have a YouTube channel. It was created back in 2016 in May. The public wanted it because a lot of them couldn't attend the meetings. They were not providing the videos of the meeting on the local cable channel anymore. So the district and our master recorder over there, Bob, have been working together to record the videos and then upload them back up to YouTube. So since the inception of the site, we've had 11,306 views, or minutes of viewing time. The average duration of said time is about 6 minutes and 38 seconds.
Which means you are not keeping them entertained.
Exactly.
Tune in.
So we need some more
tune
bells
out.
and whistles and maybe some juggling,
Yeah.
if you guys could do some of that. Our top 10 videos are listed here. And it seems like the number one was the July 5th, 2017 meeting, which when the rate studies looked like it began. So we had quite a few hits on that one. It gives us a little bit, the site actually gives us a little bit of the statistics about who's viewing, how long they're viewing, what they're using to view, stuff like that. Most of it, as we can see, is all in the United States. Surprised we're not getting any views in Singapore or anything like that. Gender, sometimes they do give feedback on that. We didn't get anything from that one. And then we've got some, what are the other statistics I got on here? Total number of views, total number of minutes watched for all the videos that we have. And like I said, the number one was the July 5th, 2017, which was viewed for a little over 1,000 minutes. And then it broke down by what device was actually watching those. So it was computer, tablet, mobile phone, TV, like a smart TV, or a game console. So as we looked at...
Let me enter,
Oh.
this is interesting. I don't think it's true, but a game console, like 1%. So maybe those are adults that are on a game console,
Could be.
or maybe those are just mistakes from 14-year-olds that
Clicked on the wrong YouTube channel.
they were looking for something anyway. I would like to hope it's 1% of the youth of the community,
Right.
but I don't think that's right.
And it actually breaks it down by what type of operating system. So Windows still beats out for the,
Wow,
even though Mac is close.
2 to 1.
It is
Yeah.
close.
No way.
It's about half.
Yeah, about half.
And it looks like the game console was the PlayStation.
Yeah, PS4 acts
Yeah.
like internet.
No Alexa, yeah.
So that's kind of our YouTube and analytics.
Thank you, it's cool.
So we can't see the analytics, the public doesn't see that, right?
The public does not see the
Okay,
analytics.
I didn't think, I hope not. All right, any
That-
comments from the board?
It's great.
It was great.
Seeing none? Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, thank you. One question for the GM, can we do that?
Yes, sir.
On the meter replacement, did you say you're working in conjunction with 29, with Ray College for cost estimates, or?
Well, we're sharing information and trying to figure out the best route forward. And one of the ideas that Ray had, and we don't know if this is possible, we're going to ask it tomorrow, on our eastern side and their western side, if there are collectors that could overlap and like dump our information into that collector and somehow send it to us, rather than us putting up another collector, or vice versa. And it's just an idea that Ray has. I mean, Ray's a great researcher of stuff.
And they've already bought all their meters, or no?
No, their estimates are about 1.2 million, but that's with only 4,400 meters being purchased, because the other, Ray has other newer meters that he may not be purchasing at this time.
So I'm assuming then if we're rolling some of ours in, we could maybe get a bulk sale on some of these things?
We're going to ask them.
I like that.
Yeah, we could be
Well,
buying
that's-
as much
that's
as
great, yeah.
Henderson, Nevada did
Henderson.
the first go around. And, you know, they're still, Mark and the field dudes are going to have to, you know, look at the meters. I mean, these meters are moving part meters,
Right.
and High Desert just did an AMR system when they went with master meter. And the consultant said in our first meeting that every meter company is moving towards non-moving parts. So we're still exploring all that
So
stuff.
maybe you can convert Ray or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good information, thank you.
Anything else from the board? Seeing none? We're going to go to director reports on meetings attended, comments, and future agenda items. And I'm the only one that's got meetings, so I'll do myself last. I think I'll start with Kathleen so I don't forget her. Kathleen Radnick, public information.
Well, we finished our 2 tours for the season, and I have had the pleasure of running into numerous attendees of the tours in the last, they were just back to back, and I've seen a lot of these people today, especially I had a meeting with the Chamber Board, the Josh Street Chamber Board. They were all on the second tour, except for their president. And mind you, we did not have the best weather, definitely not good weather on the first tour. And the people still raved about it was well worth their time and how much they learned. But when I met with the chamber today, that's all they want to talk about. They had no idea. It was a, oh my God, who knew water was so complicated? So, of course, I enjoyed every minute of listening to them, and I said, that's right, it's very complicated, that's what you're paying for, so. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to the staff publicly for a very good job. They really put their heart and soul in it. Going out to see Well 14, that was probably the most positive thing about Well 14, was our participants seeing what goes into rehabbing a well. It's not just you go in, you put some suds in the tank and stir it up, you know. And they saw the equipment and the staff and just everything. Plus their person came over, their foreman, and talked. And it just was an excellent opportunity. They really felt they had a lot of transparency to ask questions, and I think that's going to be the way we're going to run our tours in the future too, because we're getting a lot of buy-in from our customers who now understand what's going on. And we'll continue trying to keep communication lines open. The farmers market, we were back out there last Saturday in gale force winds and freezing cold temperatures, which is traditional for my first Saturday back. I want to thank Director Floan for, he tried to hold on to the cage of the tent. We took all the sails off, and then it just finally warmed up near the end, but we were frozen. So thank you. Thank you for hanging in, literally hanging in there.
Thanks for having me. You're the boss. You could throw me out anytime.
And as miserable as it was out there, we still had interactions. So I look forward to other directors stopping in. And whenever you can, Director Johnson, it doesn't have to be our special hours, love to see you there. Also, I am promoting at the Farmers Market this month, of course, Water Education Day activities and also the Water School. The San Bernardino County Household Hazardous Waste Collection event is occurring. Everyone got one of these probably in their mailbox in Joshua Tree. And it is the third Saturday of every month, which will be before our Water Education Day. So everyone take your stuff there instead of dumping it in the ground over our water, because then you can get a brand new empty container at Water Education Day. They'll be at our event passing out all these free big collection containers. So for now, that's what I wanted to share with you. In our next meeting, I'll probably give you a final recap of everything to expect of Water Education Day. Thank you.
Thank you. And please have nice weather on Saturday, because it's my turn to go.
It's supposed to rain. Yeah.
Lucky me. We'll do director's reports, and then I'll talk about the meetings I went to. We'll start with Rebecca Unger.
Oh, let's see. I haven't been at any meetings. Oh, I attended the Pipeline Commission, but that's your meeting. I have nothing.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
Anything else you want to say?
Well, I want to invite everybody to the finance meeting. You know, it's riveting, exciting, and the expenditures, watching where our money goes. It's always a great time. We will be meeting March 14th, bright and early at 9 o'clock. So please come.
Followed by the Water Resources and
Oh, good.
Operations, which is really a good meeting. same day.
Absolutely.
Director Hunt?
Yeah, just to add, the tour of the Eastern Municipal Water District was incredibly impressive. I think we were in awe.
Yes.
We just had no idea that they were as big as they are. And they're very sophisticated and I think a very successful district. And they currently generate a little over 5 megawatts of electricity with solar, but they're looking to add 14 more megawatts. So I hope that it does pencil out, even with this development, with the increased cost of panels and steel due to recent International Trade Commission decisions and our current administration's decisions to put tariffs on steel. So I just wanted to say that they have a full-time energy program coordinator, and he was just the greatest guy and greatest resource, and spent an incredibly generous amount of time with us, and enthusiastically said that he would be willing to help us going forward. So it was a great connection to make.
Good news.
Yeah.
Excellent. Director Floon?
Regarding the household waste place over there, just on the other side of our little bridge, just beyond the feed store, they're doing so well there, I guess you could say that, they're so busy there that they're documenting how busy they are. They're taking photographs and such, showing the line of cars, looking to get some funds to expand the facility there, so that they can either do more or do it more efficiently or whatever. But when I did get there, this was just this last month, I barely got in the gate. There were 7 or 8 cars ahead of me. I forgot how many I counted. But I was out in 11 minutes. That's all it took. And you're not supposed to get out of your car. If there's a rule, stay in your car. They'll unload for you. I mean, it's just a wonderful thing. Free, obviously. So I use it, and I strongly, I've been a proponent of that for a while, I reckon. I've been talking about that. The farmer's market, yes, it was, I had my polar weight long handles on, flannel-lined Levi's over that, a parka, and I was still cold. I thought I was clever when I was actually using Kathleen as a windbreak. Her hair was going out from her face towards me until she put it back in a ponytail or some such thing. I thought I was being clever when I did that, but I didn't realize I was facing the sun for 5.5 hours when I did that, so I'm peeling like a lizard. I'm sure my face is red. But another thing that we've kind of tentatively started doing is providing that Death of a Water District book there. And the convenience is that if it's loaned from there, when people are doing their shopping and such, when it's time to return it so that we can recirculate it, they can do their shopping again, and it's, rather than coming over to the office here, they can kind of kill 2 birds. So I think it's a slight improvement on a wonderful thing that we have there. And I would encourage people to come, because it's much more informal there. There's extra chairs. You can sit there and you could say things freely there without feeling uncomfortable or intimidated by a whole bunch of people looking at you from around the world on Bob's YouTube over there. But come on over, argue with us. You can yell if you want. Sometimes people think that I'm a little bit intimidating, but I am not. But once you sit down with me, and I promise you we'll have an interesting conversation if you come over. Thank you.
And I'm there this week, so it'll be really fun. Okay, so I'm going to report on the 2 meetings I went to. The Mojave Water Agency Board of Directors, they have a project they call R-Cube, and I can't even remember what it stands for, but it's a recharge project. And they had a 25-inch pipe break. And they showed a video of them fixing that. I mean, you know what we went through with our 20. And it was very interesting, very interesting. And I'm going tomorrow to their meeting, so we'll see what this week brings. Pipeline Commission. Pipeline has voted to continue meeting every 2 months, and because the bond will be paid off in, I don't think anybody really knows, 2022 or 2024?
It'll be paid off in 2022.
2022. And
And the monies will be done being collected in
21.
2021.
yeah. But Jim Ventura, who is a director at Mojave Water Agency, was adamant about how important it is that the participants on the pipeline stay in communication. So we will continue to meet because there are, Lucerne wants to take part of the water, and they can do that because Mojave has a small percentage of the water that goes. But I want to be able to negotiate some of this stuff because, the pipeline was basically paid for by the Morongo Basin. And I don't want to be a bee about it, but I do think that we have to protect our interests. And I don't think it'll matter as far as the amount of water they take, but I'd like to have them put something into the, the kitty to help pay for what we already paid for. So stay tuned, I'll let you know what happens. I don't remember when our next meeting is. It's 2 months after the last one, which was March 1st, so it'll probably be May. And future meetings, Mojave Water Agency Board of Directors meeting is at 9:30 tomorrow. That again is me. Finance Committee is March 14th. That's Vice President Johnson and Director Floan, followed by Water Resources. And that is me and Vice President Johnson. And the Mojave Water Agency Technical Advisory Committee is April 5th. I think I mentioned before that that's going to be a tour of the VVWRA, the Victor Valley Wastewater Authority, which puts a lot of water back into the Mojave River. So I think that'll be a fascinating tour. If anybody's interested, let me know. I told them that there was some interest at one of our meetings, and they're thrilled. They would love to have anyone that's interested in coming. Just let me know, and we'll make reservations for you. And with that, is there anything else from anyone? Seeing none, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for coming. It's nice to see a group here, even if we aren't doing the rating.